Hi, my name is Christopher David Mitchell. I'm a coach, and today we're going to be talking about how your greatest strength can actually be your greatest weakness, and how your greatest weaknesses can actually turn into your greatest strengths. So my aim for this episode is for you to become more aware of your strengths and weaknesses. Generally, we do want to play to our strengths in life, but if you overdo those strengths, what can actually happen is it can backfire on you. And then if it does, your greatest strengths actually turn into some of your greatest weaknesses. But also, there's the vice versa of this, that a lot of people see weaknesses as a bad thing, a negative thing. So what we're going to try and do is flip this on its head with some tangible examples that I'll give, and see how we can turn your greatest weaknesses into actually something is unique and remarkable about you, so it actually is your greatest strength. So let's get into this with tangible examples. Here we go. So let's go the first example and say that you are someone who has a strength of being very altruistic. Now, that means that you'll be very giving, very serving, very charitable, very self-sacrificing really to others. Just a very kind, giving and generous person. All beautiful things, right? But again, let's just assess if this strength can be taken too far and it can actually backfire and sabotage you. And it turns out it could, because we still live in a society where you have to have a sense of self-worth, and you have to have a sense of still serving yourself in some form in order to then be at your best to serve others. And anyone will tell you that's got a business that you want it to have a heart, a soul, and serve others, but not at the cost of serving the business itself. And some people who are very altruistic and are always serving others so much actually neglect themselves and their own energy and their own needs, and then that backfires, and then it turns into a lot of problems for them. So you want to be serving others, but you don't want to do it at the expense of yourself. And just be mindful when you're in business that you still have some boundaries, you still have some ways that you protect yourself, because unfortunately there will always be a bias for people, some people, a certain minority of people, wanting to take advantage of you if you are so self-serving, generous and self-sacrificing. Okay, so let's go to another example. What happens if you had a strength of taking action? You know, everyone's like, you got to take action all the time. You know, you got to take action. It's all about action. It's all about getting it done, right? Those people have a strength and a bias towards action and taking action, which is great. Again, a lot of good things in that. But what happens if you overdid that strength? What happens if it became your only thing and you became so sort of identified with that? What would be the backlash that could happen? Well, of course, people can get stuck in just never-ending courses of action taking, and they never take the time to reflect, to think, to analyze, to contemplate. This is when people are like workaholics. They'll just be like action, action, action year after year. And, you know, they can't take time out, or else they sort of guilt themselves of, I should be taking action. Do you know what I mean? And they don't really ask themselves the really important questions in life, because you can't reflect when you're taking action. You're just in like action mode. But what about reflecting and taking time out and saying, is this work I'm doing really meaningful to me? Is this work I'm doing really meaningful to others? Is this work I'm doing really going to matter in 10, 20 years time? You know, that takes a moment of reflection and sort of analysis and self-reflection, really, some time out. So these two have to balance out a little bit, because if you get stuck in a course of action, what you might find is you might find yourself 20 years down the line, or 5 years or 10 years down the line, actually at one point stopping to reflect and thinking, I spent all this time in this mode of action, but I didn't actually really reflect and contemplate whether it was the right course for me within my life. And again, this could be with relationships, with life, with business, with any aspect of your life. So there has to be that balance there. Okay, so the next tangible example might be, you might have a strength of being very ambitious. Maybe you're really ambitious and you're like, yeah, I'm really ambitious and I want to be number one and I want to be the best and I want to be the top dog. You know, a lot of high achievers have this, you know, sports professionals, music professionals, actors, right? One of their strengths as a person to get to that level is they've got this ambition. Like, they don't want to just do it, but they want to sort of be the best. It's a bit of a egoic thing, but you sort of do need that little bit to sort of like get you there, you know, where you think, I don't just want to do this, but I want to do this really well, or I want to beat the competition, or I want to get the trophy, that sort of thing. That's a great strength in a way, because it does actually get you some more of that achievement. And you might be thinking, well, what's the downside of that? How could that ever backfire, Chris? Well, what you find after analyzing these people who are so ambitious is that they get so stuck in that strength that they're never satisfied. They're never satisfied. And what happens if they become second place? They're hard on themselves, they're beating themselves up. And again, you might think, well, that's great, because then you're hard on yourself and then you're more chance of getting first place the next time. Yeah, maybe, but there's still a sacrifice to that. There's a sacrifice of not being content if you come second. There's a sacrifice of not being content when you've won one trophy. Because if you're ambitious, you sort of forget about it 2 months later. Then you need the next trophy or the next trophy. So what these people do is they sort of beat themselves up to constantly achieving more through their ambition. But what they sort of find is they're never fully satisfied along the journey, because they're always chasing that next trophy, that next first place. And even if they do get to first place, because they're so ambitious and it means so much for them to be number one, they're always sort of looking behind them in a scared fashion. So this could be a balance again, where people could go wrong, get a bit down, get a bit depressed, and not really understand why their greatest strength could be backfiring on them and becoming a greatest weakness. Okay, the next greatest strength is one of my strengths. So here's a personal experience one, is what happens if you're a really good analyst. So I would say that I'm a really good analyst. I'm a really good person who can like self-reflect and analyze things sort of to death even. And that's worked in my favor. Like when I'm coaching people, one of the ways I think that I've been a good coach over the years is being able to really analyze their situation, analyze what's going on with their life, really heavy detail of what's going on with the situation, pick it apart to death almost, and from there come up with a really unique solution that someone who's not analyzing it that much wouldn't be able to tap into. So it's definitely a strength that I've been able to analyze stuff to such a degree that it produces great results for some of my clients over the years, because there's great insights from deep analysis sometimes, which is why I'm shooting some of these videos. Like, think about this video. I had to contemplate and think about this, because this was one of my strengths, and I'm analyzing my own strengths and thinking, how is this backfiring? So it's sort of funny how it all plays in together in this video. But how that turns into a weakness is I can get stuck in a bit of paralysis by analysis. You can overanalyze to the point where you become quite frozen in wondering what to do. You can get bogged down with analysis. I can do this for sure. You can get stuck in a course of analysis and not take action enough, something we talked about. And you can sort of make things too complicated a bit sometimes, when actually you had the answer like I maybe had the answer like days ago in my head of analysis, but I think that there must be like a deeper analysis or theory to it all, and sometimes there isn't. So you can get caught in that trap, and that is one of my biggest weaknesses. But this is why it's helpful to know that, because now if I feel like I'm getting stuck in that paralysis by analysis, I'm sort of thinking, yes, this is my greatest strength here going into the weakness, but I'm aware of it. So now, as soon as I realize I'm over-analyzing a situation, I can quickly break out of it easier. Whereas before, I wasn't aware that I necessarily was in that weak state, and I just stayed there. But now I've got like a very good awareness where if I stay in analysis too long, like on command, I've got to say, right, enough of that. Now I've got to move towards sort of implementing this analysis, implementing this theory. So there's an example from my own life. So another tangible example I want to give is what happens if you have a strength of honesty. Honesty. This is a tricky one. This is interesting because, again, you might think, well, how can there be a weakness to honesty? Well, you could argue that maybe there isn't, but let's dive deeper. So, honesty is a beautiful thing. Honesty is what people can really appreciate in someone. It's rare, as Billy Joel said. But what happens when you're so honest all the time? It can actually still get you into a bit of trouble. It can not get you the results you want in the world, in your business and in your life and in your relationships. So we've talked a bit about business as examples. Let's talk about relationships with this honesty. If you were 100% honest, then the dating process wouldn't go well, because people don't want 100% honesty on the dating process. They want the sort of game of how it's meant to go a little bit. So what's really honestly on my mind, maybe on a first date or second date, this isn't on my mind by the way, just for example, might be something like, oh my God, this woman's absolutely gorgeous, like you are absolutely gorgeous, and I've got a plan to sleep with you the next time we go on a date. That might be what's honestly going through my head. It's funny to actually say this, I'm going red in the face. But that wasn't on my head. But point is, if you said that to a woman, it would scare them off, or anyone. But sometimes we do have these honest thoughts where we're like, I feel like, this person could be really special. This person could be the one, even if it was that. But like, would you say that to someone? Would you be like, I just want to tell you my honest thoughts right now, and just blur out some honest thoughts that, when you're meeting someone new, it wouldn't be socially appropriate, and that's when it can get you into trouble. So again, that's a bit of a weird thing of like, people don't want that. It's sort of like reading a novel. The honest answer might be, I'll tell you what happens at the end, but people don't want that. They want the journey of it all. And another thing in business, it's really difficult to be 100% honest in business. And I've never seen a business yet that is, because say someone does like why don't you come on my free webinar? Why don't you download my free ebook? Or why don't you do this? Right? Well, the honest, 100% honest thing might be to write text under there. When you come on my webinar, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you some training for 45 minutes, and then I'm going to sell you one of my online courses. Or just so you know, when you download my ebook, there'll be a link to try and, buy one of my products. Like, that's not what happens. Marketers don't tell you that because they know that that's not what people want to hear. They don't want 100% honesty. If Apple was 100% honest, they would say, okay, we're giving you this iTunes song for 99p because we know that after that you'll need to buy an iPhone or an iPod, whatever, in the old days, to play it on, and then you'll get so frustrated that then you'll want a laptop to sync it to. Or we're going to honestly give you this free gigabytes of storage in the cloud, because what happens is we know that most people, once they get addicted to that free storage, then they opt for the higher storage that's paid. Like, that would be the honest thing for a business to say. Like, they're not going to say that. So you could sort of think about this one as authenticity as well. The truth of reality is that although people talk about honesty and authenticity, which is great, and again, you want to have a lot of this, but to be 100% honest in business, life, and relationships is actually not what people want, not what other people want to hear most of the time. I don't know. Maybe I'll try it on my next business thing, on my next date, but I don't think that would go very well. Okay, so the next tangible example is perseverance. So perseverance, I can persevere through anything, I can get through anything. That's a great strength that's great for, again, your relationships, your life, going to the gym, building a business, etc. To be able to persevere through things, through the tough times, through the ups and downs of life, and you keep going, that's a beautiful thing. I think that is one of my strengths as well. So this one's personal to me. But of course, how could you go so all in on that strength that it backfires on you and becomes a weakness? Well, people who are so good at persevering through anything, they never know when to quit. And they can't quit often, and they hate the idea of quitting. But this whole idea of, oh, if you quit, you fail, is nonsense. You know, read Seth Godin's The Dip, the book. It's all about knowing when to quit strategically, and you should quit a lot. Because if you're like gung-ho on some relationship that's not really working, but you're like, I'm going to persevere, I'm going to make it happen, I'm going to make it work no matter what, well, all you're doing is prolonging the agony, because you can't admit to yourself that maybe I just need to quit for the greater good. Similarly, if you're building a business and you're like, I'm someone who perseveres and I can persevere and I can get through this and I'm not a quitter and I'll get through it no matter what. And that might be great. And at some points we see with businesses that that is the reason why they succeeded. But we also see people who went on like desperately trying to keep a business going for like 10 years when it was obvious years ago that it wasn't the right business for them, that the marketplace was changing, that the customer base was changing, and they just kept persevering because they just couldn't let it go, they couldn't quit. So again, you can fall into a trap with this one. I nearly had this with the health journey. I would be sort of like, right, I'm gonna find a cure. This is when I was getting really ill. If someone's watching for the first time, watch my video, search my survival story, living with an ileostomy bag. But basically I was getting so ill and, you know, I was losing so much blood, but I was really persistent and I was like, you know, but we're going to find a cure and I'm going to do this and I'm going to get through it. I'm going to fight this disease. I'm going to battle it. And then there was a day came when I had to sort of balance it out with reality and say, okay, Chris, I need to drop this idea that giving in or giving up is a bad thing, but actually giving up strategically might be the best thing for the greater good. And I remember I had to have a day where I thought, I'm going to have to drop this persistence here and I'm going to have to just accept that I'm going to give in temporarily for the greater good. It's hard to do, but it does actually produce the greater good, because like I say, you can go months or years or decades persisting on something in your life, whether it be a relationship, a business, or an aspect of life that actually you should have given up a long time ago. Okay, and the last little example here is what if you've got a strength of versatility? That's a cool strength, right? That you're versatile, you can do this, you can do that, you know. I used to work with a lot of performers, and it was like, yeah, they can dance and they can sing and they can tap and they can do this and they can hula hoop and they can, you know, gymnastics and all this, and they're versatile. That could be a greater strength, but how could that turn into a weakness? How could that skill and strength of versatility backfire on you? This one might be a bit more obvious now we've been going through the video, but obviously it's the fact that you never actually create mastery in anything. To create mastery in one thing really takes sort of dedication to one aspect of reality. So what I mean is that, you know, Tiger Woods in his day wasn't also Michael Phelps the swimmer. Like, that took mastery in aspect of life. Mozart wasn't also sort of Daniel Day-Lewis. Like, to really master something takes a long time. We've heard about the 10,000 hours thing, but I might actually do an episode on mastery. But anyway, if you're so versatile that you can do loads of things, the weakness there is you tend to not be amazing at one thing. And what I've found is that, like, performers, singers, actors, artists, everything over the years, actually they're pretty narrow. They're pretty just a master at one thing. It's hard to name someone who actually is masterful at multiple things. What you find is that energy, that skill set just naturally disperses and spreads as your time spreads, as your attention spreads. There's of course maybe one-off geniuses who, you know, some people might put in the comments, please do. But as a sweeping general, when we even look at someone like, let's take singers, if we look at someone like Pavarotti, even within the field of singing, he's only really mastered one aspect of singing, i.e. opera. But if you ask Pavarotti to sing a Stevie Wonder song or a Frank Sinatra song or a, you know, Led Zeppelin song, I mean, it would sound terrible. And vice versa. I'm not having a go at Pavarotti because he achieved that mastery. But that's a good example. Like, the best people in the world are actually the best at this thing that they do. And a lot of people who are versatile get stuck in the trap of, like, they're so versatile that they spread their talents, their attentions and their skills too thinly, and they never create mastery. And what really people who achieve so much, like their human potential, is achieved through mastery. It's not achieved through versatility. So there's some examples there of turning the strengths into the weaknesses. But as we say, what we want to do now is think about how can we turn some weaknesses actually into something that is unique, that is remarkable, and that's an asset and then a strength for us. So just similar to the last point, say you felt like one of your weaknesses was that you can't multitask. So if you're like, oh, I've got this weakness where, like, I'm just really bad at multitasking. Instead of just finishing that off there, think, well, what's the flip side of that? The flip side is that I'm really good at doing one thing at a time. So then go all in on that a little bit more. So if you're really good at doing one thing at a time, then you could say schedule working hours where you just focus on one topic for an hour and a half and then you take a break. And then you just focus on another topic for an hour and a half and then you take a break. And also, if you realize that's a weakness, then you should never do something like try and build 2 businesses at once. If you realize that you're not very good and a weakness is sort of not being able to multitask, then turn that into a strength where you are amazing at being laser focused when you need to be. You're amazing at being specific and getting something done in a masterful way when you need to be. So again, another, just from one of the examples, a weakness could be that I always overanalyze everything, which was mine. Again, instead of just thinking, oh, well, that's just a weakness, what's the strength of that? The strength is that I'm really good at deep analysis Are there some jobs out there in technical analysis, in data analysts, you know? Are there some jobs out there where like I'd be amazing at that job? Because actually it's sort of come from a weakness, but like at this job, there's not many people could beat me. So hopefully you see there. And a more sort of personal example as well is after having an ileostomy bag, which I do, it's just here on me. For years, I thought that that was my greatest weakness, was having an ileostomy bag, was having all those surgeries, was going through all that adversity. I thought, oh, this is like the weakest, most negative part of my life, of what I've been through my experiences. But then, of course, let's do this process. How can I turn that into my greatest strength? Well, if I embrace the weakness, I say, right, I've got something to say here to help others. I've got a unique YouTube channel, hopefully, to build that has my unique perspective from the weaknesses I've been through that can serve people in a unique way. You know, I can sort of even be known for, like, it's funny that sometimes people are like, oh, Christopher Dave Mitchell, who's that guy? And sometimes I say, oh, the guy with the ileostomy bag. But actually it's quite cool because like, it doesn't really matter what I'm known for, I don't mind. But like, it can be a strength of like, it makes, if you embrace that weakness, it can make you more unique. It can make your business more unique, your life experience more unique, and that can shift over in your relationships, in your business, in your life. So I feel like now one of the greatest strengths I've got going forward is all that experience I had from all that negativity, or one of my weaknesses of having an ileostomy bag. I think that's why that video did so well, because in my video, you know, like I said, my survival story, living with an ileostomy bag, all I really did was show my greatest weakness. And it turned out to be then a greater strength of changing my own life and changing the lives of others. So there's a more sort of soulful and from the heart sort of example there. So I hope that's helped. So now I want you to think before you go away today, what are your strengths that you know you're good at? This might take some self-reflection, some thinking. What are the things that you're like, I'm really good at this? And think about if that got taken to the extreme, or if I went too all in on that, how could it backfire and turn into my greatest weakness? So make a note of them and list them down, because if you're aware of the traps that you might fall into, that's already half the battle. Then also list down what you think or what you believe are your greatest weaknesses. What are you not good at? What do you suck at? What are the most things that you think are like negative, bad parts of your life or your personality, etc.? And see if there's a way, if you can turn those on their head and see how that can make you more unique, more powerful, and it could actually turn into a real amazing strength for you in your life. So do those exercises both ways, and I guarantee that you're going to just hone into what makes you more strong and amazing in the world, and you're also going to turn those weaknesses into strengths. So you're going to be a powerhouse going forward, and you're going to be aware of the traps as well, just in case you go in on your strengths too much. So that's it for today. Thanks so much for watching. Please visit my website, christopherdavemitchell.com. I've got some coaching on there. If you want to go through with me personally and do some strengths tests, some weaknesses tests, I'll be able to analyze and get down to what are your unique strengths, what are your unique weaknesses, and how to use them so that they serve you in your life rather than hinder you. So if you need coaching on that and further help, then please go visit my website and like this video and share it with a friend if that's good, and comment if you can on what are your greatest strengths. Or a good comment would be like, what do you think is your weakness and you can't figure out how to turn that into a strength? that could be a really fun one to explore with you down in the comments. Thanks so much. I really appreciate it. And until next time, I'll see you then. Bye.